So, coming off of our Super Bowl defeat to the Baltimore Ravens, we are officially now in year number 5. Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and thank you all so much for hanging out with us as we get into this season. Man, oh man, as you can see right there for our available cap space, we are minus basically 7 million going into the year. And just taking a look here at our team itself, the players that we are going to need to re-sign. Mike Inzerma, he has his 5th-year option, so we are instantly going to accept that, keeping him on the team for at least another year. But unfortunately, we're going to lose Curl, Robinson, Payne, Meadows, Cox, Parker Hancock, Callaway, Eel, Blackman, Lopez, Harrington, Cameron Dicker, unfortunately, Steve Stanley, our fullback. Not necessarily, too chaffed about that particular loss, but a loss still nonetheless. Last year really was us kind of just going all in and all for it. So a lot of changes are going to be needed to be made coming up for this season. It's going to be interesting, man, to say the least. So as we get into the draft process, it's probably a good idea just to take a look at the quick mock draft, just as I typically always do. I'm not really going to highlight any particular player or any particular team, just kind of getting everyone a little bit more familiar. If you want to see something, more than happy for you to pause the actual video and take a look, but it is saying that Stephen Chambers, the cornerback, is going to be our particular pick. We might as well just take a little bit of a look at him as he's here. Aggressive ball hawk for better or worse. From the physicality, haven't seen his actual combine numbers yet, but we have a ton of changes still on the way. It's going to be really interesting to see how this offseason goes. So our first big move of the offseason was trading our star wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, who we now see is an 88 overall, for a first round pick in 2029 and a third round pick in 2028 to the Denver Broncos. So definitely trying to add some more draft capital, and we are definitely going to be able to have some more cap space heading into the year, which is something. So at least we can try to sign some of our depth players. But with how Luke Hunt was playing and with how Jahan Dotson had also been playing, it's one of those things where, for us trying to find a wide receiver either in this year's draft or the draft after is something that I am more than happy to try to do. And the Broncos needed a wide receiver. They're showing the most amount of interest, and this was the best trade that I could possibly get. So making another trade, this time we send Wyatt Teller, who is going to be on the final year of his deal, to the Carolina Panthers, this time for a 2029 first round pick and a 2028 third round. So pretty much the exact same deal that we sent for Terry McLaurin. We're really trying to load up for next year's draft and really just trying to get as many players. Again, we're loading up here in the third round. We do have that first round pick, but trying to get some players. Hopefully the third round of this year is good, but next year in the first round, having 3 first round picks is going to be absolutely massive for us heading forward. So what is going to be my final trade of the offseason, where we're starting to unload some guys. Reggie Griffin, one of our first draft picks, I think, I can't fully remember, but we are sending him to the Arizona Cardinals and a 7th round pick this year for a 2029 first round pick. So we already have 2 of our corners locked up, so just adding some more draft capital for next year is going to be absolutely huge. Having those 4 first round picks, trying to make this rebuild quicker and just smooth it out, while hopefully still trying to have a good rest of the season. So for us, we are only really looking to try and bring in one guy, and if you're familiar with the channel and you've seen the series, you might recognize this player, Chris Nix, former first round draft pick of us. Granted, he pretty much just turned into I wouldn't say a bust because he's still a 78 overall, but he just didn't really live up to that first round potential. We're going to be trying to at least bring him back. We need a left tackle, but we can move Inzerma back over and move Chris Nix back to that right tackle spot, and at least that situates our tackle position for the year, or maybe the next two is that what I've offered him. So let's see if we ultimately get him. He didn't sign on the first one, didn't get him on the second one, still didn't get him on the third one. So we are going to have to wait until the next week to see if we got him. So we ultimately were able to convince Chris Nix to join back with us in the first stage of free agency. But just taking a look here at some of the top end players, Cole Kmet, he ends up going to the Bengals. Cameron Curl goes to the Jaguars. This is a guy that we had on our team for a while. Just taking a look to see if I can find anyone else. Deron Payne, he was on our team. He goes to the Dolphins. Brian Robinson Jr., he goes to the Buccaneers. Hate to see him go. We just couldn't afford him. Just taking a look at anyone else that potentially could have been ours. Christian Nielsen, I know he was the Giants quarterback for the last couple of years. He is now going to be heading to Las Vegas and being their guy. Jonathan Allen, he actually goes to the Giants. Just taking a look, anyone else I remember with our team, Justin Meadows, our former second round pick, he ends up signing with the Browns on a 2-year deal. So very, very interesting to say the least, but ultimately we have ourselves the tackle that we need for the future, and we didn't have to spend a crazy or expensive amount, but let's move on to the draft. So with this year's first pick, the Steelers select Greg Clancy, the outside linebacker from UCF, with the first pick. So that's likely an edge rusher, potentially even maybe to replace TJ Watt in the future, but that is the first overall pick. Taking a look here at the Giants and what they are doing, they also go outside linebacker. This time, Mitch Tatum, our outside linebacker out of Notre Dame. So those are the first two picks. We'll be back for our first round pick, or unless we do something else with it. And with our first pick in the draft, with the 31st pick, we end up replacing Cameron Curl with Theo Berry, safety out of UCF. He also has that hidden dev trait. I honestly didn't really know what to pick. Saw this guy there, and I was like, you know what? He's got to be the guy. Right now, looks like he could potentially be very, very good for us moving forward, but I am really happy with this first pick. So with our first pick in the third round, and the last pick that I'm actually going to show you here in the draft before we actually just take a look at the regular season, is actually going to be outside linebacker Gordon Goodrich. And you can see right there another hid dev trait player for us. Really, really happy with how this draft is turning out so far, but we will be back once the draft is officially over to take a look at all of our players. So as we typically do, we always take a look here at the actual NFL draft, the first round, and just some of the top 10 picks, just to see kind of what some of the top end ratings are throughout this. And yeah, so taking a look here, the Steelers with Clancy is a 75. Looks like we had the Tatum also being a 75, while actually looks like we had a bunch of guys 75 overall, but who was the best rated player? Kendrick Judge, the 10th pick in the draft from the corner position, and looks like actually the secondary were all the really, really good players. Some guys in the second round. Devin Witherspoon, that was another guy that I was looking at. Trevor McCollum, the fullback that we ultimately ended up drafting, was kind of up there in the draft, so it's kind of good that we got to see that. But now taking a look here at our official draft, remind you, I haven't actually seen this so far, but Theo Berry, the guy that I was actually really excited to go out and get, he's only a 72 overall. Hopefully that dev trait is something high and he can develop into something really good. Gordon Goodrich, the outside linebacker, at a 73. 63. And then I took a flyer on Alonzo Rayford, the corner, 69. And then Matthew Goodrich was just absolutely not anything really. He's 65 power rusher, left outside linebacker. Again, in our scheme, he's going to be a defensive end. So I'm going to move him to defensive end and see if that actually changes anything. Again, that was just kind of one of those flyer picks for myself. It's still 65. Donovan Gilmore, 60 overall. Elijah Hart, wide receiver in the 5th round, 70 overall, deep threat. So, I'm actually pretty happy with that. And then obviously McCollum, the fullback. And then we took another flyer on Grant Phillips, the corner in the 6th and final round. But that is our draft so far. Definitely going to be really interested to see what Theo Berry is going to be for us in the NFL and as our new safety. Hopefully he can develop, and hopefully he has a pretty good dev trait. But Goodrich as well also has that hidden dev trait. Appears to be a little bit better than Theo Berry, but exciting times to say the least. So in what is meant to be kind of a retooling slash rebuilding type of year, this is going to be a very, very interesting season, to say the least. Taking a look here at the actual draft class just before we get in. And if you remember, we have 4 first-round picks in this particular draft, but we're not really going to be looking for quarterback. We're going to be looking for some tackles, some defensive, or some D tackles, some offensive tackles, maybe some corners, some wide receiver, maybe some extra offensive line. Just really kind of looking at the best players available. Luckily for us, we already know for a fact that we have our quarterback, so that makes this rebuild just that much easier moving forward. And honestly, we're probably going to be looking for a running back as well, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this season goes. Honestly, with Lance Klein, I'm not really going to say that we can't make it back to the playoffs. I don't know if we'll make a deep run like we have before, but this is just kind of one of those things when you kind of go all in on a Super Bowl and developing some younger players, and we've done that. We made it to a Super Bowl. We didn't win it, and it's going to be really interesting. But taking a look here, I'll show you our lineup for the particular season. So Lance Klein, obviously going to be our starting quarterback. Luke Hunt is our number 1 wide receiver. Jahan Dotson is going to be our wide receiver number 2. And our 3rd wide receiver is going to be Elijah Hunt, the young man that we drafted. Inzerma is going to be our starting left tackle. Northrump, who was a guy that we drafted, I think, in year number 2 of the series as a guard. Connor Williams is still going to be our center. Sam Cosme. I don't know why I keep calling him Sammy. I just feel like it fit. And then Nix, who is actually officially back on our team, if you didn't see that in the last episode. And Okonkwo, still going to be our tight end. Then taking a look here at the defensive side of things, Isaiah Simmons is going to be our best linebacker, but Whitington, kind of one of those guys that we ended up trading for. Emerson Jr. and Emmanuel Forbes going to be our 2 main corners, and Benford, a guy that we drafted 2 seasons ago. He was our free safety that we're ultimately moving over to strong safety, but for Barry, our 1st round pick, he's actually going to be playing most of his time in the slot, so you're actually going to get to see some of our specialty. But taking a look at our special teams before we take a look at that, this is kind of what it is here for the moment. Now taking a look over at the specialties, so just kind of looking at, we are going to go with Blackburn as kind of our feature back, and I am going to go with Elijah Hart as our number 3 wide receiver, but that is kind of that, and this is our practice squad. I didn't sign any of these guys, and never do, but typically as we go through each of these episodes, we will stop for week number 4, or after week number 4, so week number 5, or anytime that we get a win. So hopefully we get a win sooner in this episode. But yeah, we'll check back soon. So the Super Bowl hangover has been real for us. We won our first game against the Dallas Cowboys, our rival in week number 3. So currently at the moment we are 1-2, but ultimately we've had some close games, only losing by no more than 7 in each of those games, but we ultimately get the win against our rivals, winning by 16, playing our butts off in this one. Justin Pearson was the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys in this game. He threw 2 TDs, an interception, and was sacked once, while Lance Klein was pretty efficient in throughout the air. 88% completion, 2 passing touchdowns to no interceptions, and the 2 sacks on the day. We kind of expected lower offensive line to be sacked, potentially a little bit more. Christian Blackburn, 56 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown, but McCollum also getting the touchdown on the ground, our rookie tight end, so you love to see it. Elijah Hart, oh my goodness, our rookie wide receiver who was a 5th-round pick, 106 yards and 1 TD. Jahan Dotson also getting the TD. Luke Hunt with 61, but Okonkwo also helping out there. Taking a look at the sacks, Inzerma and Nix both allowing it there. Taking a look, Isaiah Simmons leads the team in the tackles. Taking a look at the sack department, Leslie Moody, our only sack getter, and the 1 interception from Christian Carter. So unfortunately, we are currently 1-3 on the season, and looking at the stats, Lance Klein has thrown for over 1,000 yards so far in the first 4 games, but has the 5 passing touchdowns, the 5 interceptions, which isn't super awesome. He is throwing at 75% completion, has been sacked 8 times, but you'd love those numbers to be better. Taking a look at the rushing, Christian Blackburn, 200 rushing yards for the 2 TDs. Lance Klein with the 26 rushing yards and 1 TD. Carlos Washington with the 1 TD, and McCollum. Taking a look at our receivers, Elijah Hart, 305 yards, leads the team in receptions and rushing and yards, but also has the 3 TDs. Luke Hunt, 258, having the least amount of targets so far of the team, or not, he doesn't have the least amount, but you would expect him to have more than what we're seeing. But he has that 1 TD. Jahan Dotson also has the TD. Okonkwo still trying to find the end zone, but Elijah Hart kind of coming out of nowhere and shocking us. But taking a look here, Chris Nix, yeah, kind of what we thought was going to be the weak link, but Sam Cosme with the 2, Inzerma with the 2, and Williams with the 1. But Northrop having the no sacks given up this year. Isaiah Simmons leads the team in tackles, likely tackles for loss as well, 5, and tied with Moody. Right now, Moody only has the 1 sack. So does Wilson, and Mayo, our backup defender, or backup edge rusher, also only having the 1. Taking a look at the interceptions, Whitington with 1, Emerson Jr. with 1, Forbes with 1, and Carter with 1. For forced fumbles, no forced fumbles. Do we have any defensive touchdowns? No, we don't. Taking a look at our kicking game, so Duggan, he has 88% on extra points, only missing the 1, and the 2 field goals he has made. So I guess he's kind of already performed better than Cameron Dicker. But yeah, we definitely need some more wins and just continuing on with this season. But you know what? It's kind of one of those rebuilding, retooling type of years. So it's going to be really interesting to say the least. And with those 4 first-round picks, we definitely cuffed ourselves, but we're going to be better next year without a doubt with just the infusion of talent. So after a few weeks of negotiating, Lance Klein is staying with the organization, a 7-year, $430 something million total deal. He is expensive, 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 but from the guy that has had just nothing but success in the NFL, this is one of those things we have to pay him, we have to keep him, and he's worth it. So at the trade deadline, I have decided since the team isn't really performing at the highest possible level, and Sam Cosmi, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year, and he's going to cost us a lot, and we just spent a ton of money on Lance Klein. I decided to send him to the Cincinnati Bengals for a first this year, a first in next year's draft, and also a third round pick. So make that 5 first round picks for us this year. And for us, this is going to be absolutely huge to have this young talent. Now we just need to nail this draft coming up. So at the halfway point for our season, we have one win on the year, just a complete backstep nonetheless, and it's tough to say, but again, with all this draft capital that we have, we just kind of got to look at it as just one of those years. And taking a look at Lance Klein, the 1,651 yards, not really throwing up a whole lot of passing yards in that last 4 games because he was up over 1,000 beforehand. He does have the 10 TDs to the 5 interceptions, so he hasn't thrown any interceptions over that time. He has been sacked 15 times. Blackburn, the 403, 4 rushing touchdowns, the 1 from Klein, the 2 from Washington, and still the 1 from McCallum. Taking a look here at this, Elijah Hart leads the team in receiving yards, which is really weird because Luke Hunt really should be doing a lot more. I might try to go in and figure out why he's not getting more targets and more receptions. It's bizarre to me, the fact that he was so good. He honestly, some games put up half of that in one, and then the touchdowns are down. I'm gonna have to take a look at this, but Okonkwo, pretty happy with what he's doing, but Jahan Dotson also doing some good stuff. But Elijah Hart, you can't really be upset from what we've seen from the rookie. Taking a look at the blocking, I know this is going to be all sorts of whack. Chris Nix, yep, those 6 sacks, and Zerma with the 3. But yeah, it's yeah, just kind of taking a look at this again. We did just trade away one of our top guys, but LeBlanc in his first game didn't give up any. Now taking a look at our defense. Whitington officially taking the lead in the tackles over Isaiah Simmons. Taking a look at the sack department, Tyree Wilson with 3. Leslie Moody just not getting after the quarterback, and Stephen Norwood also not. So it's a lot of frustration so far this year, and it's just really, really annoying. Duggan missed his first extra point, sitting at 75%. Normally, this is where I would kind of end the video for this halfway point, but I think I'm going to continue on to the end of the season just because, again, we're 1-7 here at the moment, and the only win that we got was, funny enough, over the 3-4 Cowboys. But yeah, unless we basically just start winning every single game, it's kind of just to the point where we're just throwing our hands up going, this is kind of just one of those years, I guess. Believe it or not, we won a game, and it just so happens to come over the team that I hate the most in real life, and that being the Green Bay Packers. So let's see what happened. Lance Klein, the 254, the no passing touchdowns, no interceptions, was sacked twice, but Jordan Love throwing the interception and was also sacked twice, but he did throw that touchdown. So definitely must have been a game where we got all of our points on the ground, and it was in Blackburn having his best game of his career, and then McCollum also getting into the end zone. Taking a look at our receiving, Luke Hunt finally having a top end game for us this season. From finally what we're seeing, no receiving touchdowns. Good to see, but taking a look here, Williams and Darius LeBlanc both giving up sacks, but taking a look, Isaiah Simmons led the team, Stephen Norwood, and then we have Leslie Moody and Theo Brady also getting in there, and our interception getter was Emmanuel Forbes. Ever since coming off of the bye week 4 weeks ago, we have a 2-2 record, this time beating the Chicago Bears. Apparently, we can only beat teams from the NFC North, but taking a look here at the game, Tracy Prince in this one threw the touchdown and the interception, but was sacked 6 times. Lance Klein, 127 yards, the 1 TD, not sacked at all, but not a really great game from him either. So for a guy that we just paid, definitely not having it be as good as we possibly want it. Luke Hunt getting the touchdown there, but Elijah Hart doing just again continuing to have a great season. No sacks given up by us, but Leslie Moody finally having the game that we've kind of been hoping for this year with the 4 sacks, and then Norwood and Mayo also getting that, and then just good stuff there. Emmanuel Forbes getting the interception, but tackles was also Moody just having himself a monster day, and that's what we've been asking from this young man. For the first time this season, we were ultimately able to win back-to-back games and ultimately beating the Carolina Panthers. And taking a look at the stats, Bryce Young not having himself a great day, 137 yards to the 1 TD, was sacked 6 times in this one. Lance Klein having a little bit of a better day than what we saw last week, the 2 touchdowns, the 1 interception, and was sacked twice. But definitely gonna need to try to improve this team around him a little bit more. Blackburn, he had the 1 rushing TD with the 54 rushing yards. Taking a look at the receiving, Luke Hunt finally doing more Luke Hunt things with the 100 receiving yards and the TD, and Blackburn 49 and 1. So it's good to see he's being a little bit more of a dual threat. Elijah Hart with the 41 receiving yards, who gave up our sacks in Zerma and Northrup. And then taking a look here at our defense, Whitington was able to lead the team in tackles, but also getting a sack and a half. That's good. Leslie Moody with 1, Norwood with 1, Davis with 1, and Isaiah Simmons with 1, and Moko with the half a sack and no interceptions. Make that 3 and a row for us getting our third win in a row. Again, I'm kind of speechless here at the moment. I guess the team finally, cracked a Red Bull, popped a coffee, but here we go, getting this win. Taking a look at this one, Jalen Hurts with the 1 passing touchdown and was sacked 5 times. Lance Klein not, again, able to really get it done, and just not able to get those passing yards. I guess all of our touchdowns came on the ground, I guess. Carlos Washington, Lance Klein, and then McCollum all getting it done. Jahan Dotson and Elijah Hart. Luke Hunt not really able to get much into the game. Taking a look here at the sacks, must have been a running back who gave up the sacks, but Isaiah Simmons was able to be tied for the team lead in tackles with Whitington, but he also had 2 sacks on the day. Leslie Moody with a sack and a half, and Tyree Wilson with the 1, and Whitington with the half a sack. No interceptions. Nice little win streak that we're on here at the moment. This team is really trying to make a late playoff push after the horrific start to the season, and hey, I am all for it. This time beating the Minnesota Vikings 35-21. I guess we've just had the NFC North's number this year, but Emmett Lipton, their quarterback, outperformed Lance Klein again, who we just paid, but we did get after Lipton 6 times. So after kind of that midway point of the season, I was asking where our pass rush was, and I guess they heard me and they said, "Oh right, we are supposed to get after the quarterback." But Blackburn, 91 yards, having himself a good day, and Washington getting the rushing touchdown. Luke Hunt and Okonkwo leading the team in yards, basically, but Hunt and Dotson getting the touchdowns, and Elijah Hart also having himself a little bit of a decent day. Northrup let the sack in. Isaiah Simmons with 10 tackles, 1 sack again. Kind of once you get past that halfway point of the year, he just typically starts getting more and more sacks. But Jerry Whitington leads the team with 2 sacks. Leslie Moody, Davis, Wilson, all getting a sack and no interceptions on the day. There's nothing really more enjoyable than sweeping an entire conference. The NFC North just had no answer for us whatsoever, and you know what? We will happily take that. Lance Klein, however, we are not super happy with his performances. We're getting after quarterbacks, but he's been sacked 5 times, so maybe it's the offensive line in front of him making him feel a little bit more pressure. And the 252 with the 1 passing touchdown, I feel like this is a big, big regression year for him. Blackburn having himself a nice little game here, 73 yards, the 1 TD, and Washington also getting into the end zone. Quanco, Dotson, and Hart getting into the end zone, but Luke Hunt not getting there. Who gave up the sacks? Chris Nix, man. Oh my goodness, just yep, and Mike and Zerma giving up the one, which I guess is a little bit better, but Whitington with the 10 tackles on the day, and our sacks, Leslie Moody, Isaiah Simmons, of course, because who else would it be? Norwood, he's been, you know what, doing really, really good this year getting after the quarterbacks. I'm really interested to see what his final season stats are going to be. Tyree Wilson is going to get the sack, and Whitington also getting a sack, no interceptions. So the final game of the season, we were able to get our second win over the Dallas Cowboys, getting our 8th win of the season. Let's take a look at how it went. Lance Klein finally putting up a day here with 5 passing touchdowns. He does have the 2 interceptions, only the 1 sack. I want a little bit more of that because we know he's that level of quarterback. Pearson threw the 1 passing touchdown but was sacked 3 times. Blackburn not necessarily having a great day on the ground, but Luke Hunt went off in this one. 191, the 3 TDs, Jahan Dotson with the 1 TD, and Elijah Hart also getting the 1 TD. Taking a look here at this, did we give up a sack? Of course, it was Chris Nix. Definitely going to have to upgrade there. Isaiah Simmons with the 7 tackles tied with Randy Benford. Taking a look at the sacks, Isaiah Simmons, because who else? Leslie Moody, and then Tyree Wilson and the Barry were able to tie. But yeah. Unfortunately for us, however, in this particular season, we did not make the playoffs. Honestly, I'm not really that shocked by that with the 8-9 record. So it's the first year us as a general manager that we have not made the postseason. So let's take a look at the stats for the official year from our guys. Lance Klein, the 4,000 passing yards, the 25 passing touchdowns to the 10 interceptions, was sacked 33 times, which was the most of his career. Granted, we did have a downgrade in the offensive line. We did lose we did trade away our top weapon to try to get picks, so a little bit of a down year for him, but it's expected. Blackburn, 968 rushing yards with the 9 TDs, Klein getting the 3, Washington getting 5, but McCallum also getting the 5, so our tight ends, our fullback, putting in some absolute work. Luke Hunt still having a really good year, 1,214 yards, the 12 TDs, but Elijah Hart, our 5th round draft pick this season, with 911 yards with the same amount of receptions as Luke Hunt, the 6 TDs. So he looks like he's going to potentially be something for us, and I'm really, really getting excited for him. But Jahan Dotson, another good year, and Aquanco doing his thing right there. Would like to see a little more touchdowns from him, but overall pretty good. Taking a look at the blocking, and Chris Nix just with a horrific season. In Zerma also not having a great year. Connor Williams, again, also not having a great year. Northrop and LeBlanc having actually 2 pretty decent years for their overall, but Whitington leading the team with 125 tackles on the year, with Isaiah Simmons coming very close at 120. Leading the team in tackles for loss is Stephen Norwood, having himself a good year, but sacks, Leslie Moody with those 12.5, so it's good to see him stay up into those double digits. Tyree Wilson, again, had a little bit down year. Isaiah Simmons, just so good. Love having this guy around. Norwood with the 5.5, Whitington with the 4, so that's pretty good. Taking a look at the interceptions, Emmanuel Forbes doing his thing with the 3, Whitington, Carter, Emerson, and Phelps all getting interceptions. Forced fumbles, who got the forced fumbles? No forced fumbles this year. Did we have any defensive touchdowns? We did not. Taking a look at our kicker, Mason Duggan, pretty good on the extra points, missing 3 of them, not super happy there, but he also missed 3 field goals in basically his rookie season. I know he's, a year into this thing, but it's good to see nonetheless. But I'm pretty much just going to sim to the Pro Bowl, and then we'll take a look at the actual playoff schedule once the Super Bowl is on our doorstep. So now the time has come to officially see if we have anyone on our team that made the Pro Bowl. We knew we weren't going to have our quarterback there. Doubt that we had our running back, McCollum. Of course, he's getting there. That is something that you'd love to see your rookie fullback making it to the Pro Bowl. Did we have any of our wide receivers? No, unfortunately, we did not. None of our tight ends. I doubt seriously that we had any of our offensive linemen make it. Moody made his Pro Bowl. That's always great to see. He was the first left end on our team, or for the NFC. Taking a look, Norwood also made it to the Pro Bowl as the defensive tackle number 3. Isaiah Simmons, of course, he made it to the Pro Bowl. He's just that freaking good. I love that move that we were able to get him up. Griffin, the guy that we traded away, I believe he also, I believe that's him. I can't quite confirm if it is or isn't. Did we get anyone else? No, we didn't. And yeah, for us, getting 4 Pro Bowl players this year is something that I'm without a doubt happy with. I'm really going to be interested to see the playoff picture now. So, taking a look here at the playoff picture, we have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Kansas City Chiefs, a battle of the 1 seeds. But Kansas City, how did both of these teams get here? Obviously, they had home field advantage the entire way. The Colts beat the Bengals, and then the Chiefs were able to beat the Colts. The Jags faced off against the Jets, and the Chiefs barely beat the Jets in a barn burner of a game. Now on the opposite side, the Rams, who beat our opponents, the New York Giants, and so they went to face the Seahawks and lost in a pretty close game. And then the Vikings, who was a team that we ultimately beat this particular year, they got dominated by the Seahawks. So this should be a pretty decent little matchup. So the Kansas City Chiefs win the Super Bowl. I can't remember how many times in this sim that they have. Is this the first year that this is the first year of our sim? No, Chiefs win that one. They've made it to 2 but lost that one. Uh, and then so they've made it to 3 Super Bowls and 1-2, but Isaiah Pacheco, the Super Bowl MVP, Patrick Mahomes, the NFL MVP, Zach Taylor, Coach of the Year, Brandon Ayuk, Micah Parsons are the Offensive and Defensive Players of the Year. Justin Pearson and Kenny Kirkland were both the Offensive and Defensive Rookies of the season. So that is ultimately going to do it here for this episode, guys. I know we have a lot of really, really exciting stuff heading into year number 6. Year number 5, or yeah, year number 5 was not the year that we typically would have wanted to have, but we definitely performed a lot better moving forward, and next year should be a ton of fun. But till then, I will see you guys in the next episode. Peace.